If you follow Donald Trump closely, you may notice he actually attacks one musician more than most, a cultural icon and Obama endorser who Trump invokes as a supposed foil.
We don't need Jay-Z to fill up arenas.
They say Trump's language is very tough. Did you ever hear Jay-Z?
Somebody please inform Jay-Z that because of my policies, black unemployment has just been reported to be at the lowest rate ever recorded.
You gotta hear Jay-Z, the words he was using. He was using the F word all over the place. And then the next day they say I use bad language. These people are sick.
Put aside the hypocrisy of Trump protesting to the rhetorical vulgarity there and ask, why the Jay-Z obsession? Well, there's a scholar of music and politics you probably know, Professor Michael Eric Dyson, who argues that it all comes back to both jealousy and politics. Writing Obama and Jay are both tall, talented, charismatic men who used words to forge their path. The definition of, quote, black cool, they exhibit grace under white pressure. Dyson argues that's just one part of this evolving story of Jay-Z, now an American icon, a self-made billionaire who he profiles in a new book, Jay-Z Made in America. And if you do watch this show, you may know we talk about music and culture a lot. We're really into Jay-Z. And what's interesting is this book puts more meat on the bones of why this is so relevant to our society, to our politics, to what kind of America we want to be. And I'm thrilled to welcome New York Times bestselling author, Professor Michael Eric Dyson, friend of The Beat. Good evening, sir.
My friend, it's always great to be here, and never more has the name of your show, The Beat, been more relevant than me writing this book.
Shout out. You walk this story through the layers of Jay-Z and the different things that he's done. Some people know him for the music. Donald Trump knows him for what we just mentioned. Other people know him for, celebrity stories. What are you trying to get across about the fullness of his life?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I started with hustling, looking at his backdrop, his background, and looking at the forces that shaped him. He says, now all the teachers couldn't reach me and my mama couldn't beat me hard enough to match the pain of my pop not seeing me. So with that disdain in my membrane, got on my pimp game, blanked the world, my defense came. So he's giving an explanation that father absence and social immiseration and existential misery and hurt and pain drove him to a life of hustling on the streets. Walter McDougall, the great American historian, a conservative one, says that hustling is the central motif of American society. What he studied to win a Pulitzer Prize, Jay-Z knew intuitively and understood that hustling, both the bad sense of it, being on the make, trying to rip people off and the like, and the good part of it, America always looking for the next story, the next idea, the next scheme to make one rich or to enrich the nation. Jay-Z has combined them both. So I look at hustling, I look at his poetic invention, and then I look at his political, if you will, circumstances, ideas, and conditions that he addresses and how he has tried to unite them as an entrepreneur and a businessman who's also a social activist.
You talk about hustling. People also call it working. Some people nowadays call it trapping. All of this fitting into a model of American capitalism where if you are on the wrong line with your access to capital, with your connections, with often your race, then what you're doing is delegitimized. And yet it was shown through his life, and you explore this in the book, that he applied and maximized some of the same skills on the right line. Why is it so important to you to walk people through that? Because I've seen it said on the internet and elsewhere, when Hillary Clinton was talking about him as an icon, people said, why are you praising this, quote, drug dealer?
Right. Excellent point. Brilliantly set up, as you always do. It is absolutely true that America begins with a great crime. America is rooted in the mendacity of embracing ideals that it consistently undercuts. But many American families, which go on to become great and pioneering political families, were born in crime, moonshine being run in the backwoods of Appalachia. So we know that this is the case for America, but the route to their ascent is often obfuscated by the idealism and the mythology of their inherent greatness, whereas black hustling is seen with an asterisk, that somehow it is an inferior model of applying that work ethic. But I would argue it's even a greater attempt to leap over those obstacles and impediments that have been imposed. And when people tell me, how could you write about a book about a guy who sold drugs? We write books about people who sold human beings, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, and we still see their greatness. So selling drugs pales in comparison to selling men. And yet and women. And yet Jay-Z, he says, look, y'all acting like Hov told you to sell crack. No, Hov did that, so hopefully you won't have to do that. It's a cautionary tale. He looks at the sense of regret that he has.
Yeah.
He's called himself an animal for having sold those drugs. So he overcomes that story, and in doing that, he's trying to inspire a nation to do the same thing and use its hustle and its elbow grease, as my father used to call it, to make a legitimate living.
I love the way you draw on the lessons that are sprinkled throughout his work. I don't care whether you're into Jerry Garcia or Billy Joel or Bruce or Jay. When you listen closely, you can see the layers, and most art has those layers. Let's take a brief listen to Jay-Z speaking in his own words on Netflix.
Right.
He's bringing out an ugly side of America that we wanted to believe was gone, and it's still here, and we still got to deal with it. And we have to have the conversation. We have to have tough conversation. We have to talk about the N-word, and we have to talk about why white men are so privileged in this country.
Jay-Z's politics, what did you learn as you dug into that?
Yeah, a brilliant scene, by the way, that you played there. What is he talking about? The use of the N-word and people jumping on black people who use that N-word, and Jay making a good distinction, as he did to Oprah Winfrey. There's a difference between the ER hard ending and the GA ending, where black people have tried to appropriate it. But he wants to talk about why it is that this word has resurfaced in the political economy of the American imagination. And what is it about the attraction to that term that gives people such satisfaction? And then he talks about, of course, dealing with the politics of this American society, of trying to grapple with who we are. Jay-Z said, bin Laden been happening in Manhattan. Crack was anthrax back then, back when police was al-Qaeda to black men. So here he's comparing the invidious forms of racial terror to American terror and suggesting that if you understand one, you'll understand the other. So Jay-Z is trying to grapple with racism, white supremacy, anti-Semitism, anti-Arabism, and all of the isms that congregate together to make this nation not at its best. What he is trying to do is to live out the creed of America, e pluribus unum, out of many one. And his music gathers together under its oral umbrella, though, and its sonic force, those who would participate in this nation as he does, as an American citizen, giving his best to the nation and expecting that we would all make this nation better with our own gifts by staying in our own lane, doing what we do best.
I got one more topic I want to get to as we do this. If we can get into masculinity and putative black masculinity in America. Is that all right with you?
Absolutely.
Walk us through the way that Jay-Z and other young black men are appraised and judged in our society when we look at him as a very young man in his early 20s, telling the world, I never cry. If I did, I'd cry ice. Because tears alone were considered weakness in his community, but it really, in a way, America treats a lot of men. And the dad rapper we have on his more recent work, saying the pain is real, but how can you heal what you never reveal? What does it mean to you to see him grow up and actually be allowed to turn 50 when so many of his peers, so many black men and women, of course, throughout American history, are cut down before their time?
Your effortless evocation of his eloquence is edifying. So what's interesting here is that you're absolutely right. Jay-Z says, I can't see them coming down my eyes, so I'll make the song cry. That clinical distance, that dispassion that he exhibits, big pimpin'. I am not the person who will be involved. I will not be emotionally invested. And yet he has not only denied toxic masculinity its birth in his own life, he's put away poisonous patriarchy to embrace being, as you say, dad rap, and to acknowledge that he was wrong. Can you imagine telling the truth to the world about your sin, about your infidelity, about your cheating on your wife, having been called to account, and you could have easily deflected it, but you embraced it. You talked about going to therapy. You spoke about the need to overcome these old molded ideals about masculinity. You talked about your mother's sexuality as a lesbian, and you embraced the full range of masculine identities and its vulnerability. And so Jay-Z has emerged as a mature spokesman for a masculinity that is willing to tell the truth about its own vulnerability and therefore to resonate more fully with the women and others in our lives.
Michael Eric Dyson, we come to you for wisdom, politics, America, and of course, hip hop. I hope everyone checks out the Jay-Z book, and thanks for coming on The Beat. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.